What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to get into our trade targets for week 8 of the fantasy football season. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there, maybe you're 2-5, you're 1-6. If you're 0-7, you're pretty down bad. You probably got to win out. But for those of you guys that are down bad, for those of you guys that are, 7-0, 6-1, there are moves to be made to make sure that you preserve your championship window. Now, I just want to say real quick, I'm not going to be out here spewing some nonsense telling you guys, go trade Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp or Derrick Henry. If you have these guys who are like perennial league winners, guys, at the end of the season that, you needed to have to cash out and win your money, like last year, like Alvin Kamara and Travis Kelce, guys that won fantasy football championships, don't go out there and unless you can like really cash in those chips or something crazy. You're at 6-1, 7-0 for a reason. Don't do dumb things because fantasy football expert, 101 told you that it was time to sell high on a Cooper Kupp. Now, with that being said, let's get into our actual trade targets for today. Make sure you get on below, subscribe, leave a like. I produce fantasy football content every single day of the fantasy football season. Now, without further ado, let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
All right, so first up on our buy list, let's get straight to it. Let's cut the nonsense out. We're going to talk about T. Higgins. Now, by the way, this little thing right here, sign up for my Patreon. Just $5, you get my rest of season rankings, my weekly rankings. You get my waiver wire budget guide every single week. I put out a ton of content for the guys over there on Patreon. I think now we're going to have a live stream on Sundays that I open up to the public, and I just have like a little chat in the Discord so that I can kind of prioritize the patrons out there, because I like feel bad if it's a Sunday and I miss a Patreon question. And then regardless, though, let's get into T. Higgins. As a buy candidate, he is my favorite buy low right now. Whether you are at the top of your leaderboards, bottom of the leaderboards, he is the perfect buy right now. T. Higgins is a guy that I loved going into the offseason or going into the season. He is still like a top 15 dynasty wide receiver to me. He is extremely good. Last year, he looked amazing as a rookie. He was out there producing with Joe Burrow. He was up there with, CeeDee Lamb and, I hate to say it, but Brandon Ayuk. He was up there with not quite Justin Jefferson, but he was one of those guys that was poised to have a year 2 breakout, and I still do think he is on that trajectory. He's wide receiver 51 on the year. He's been underwhelming. His owner in your league is probably getting frustrated at this point. He's been missing games. Like I said, he's been underperforming, but the signs are there. There are signs that T. Higgins has life. He saw 41.7% of Cincy's targets today, or that was on Sunday. This is a tweet from JJ Zacharyson, and T. Higgins has now seen 43 targets in the 5 games that he's played healthy. In those same games, Jamar Chase has seen 37 targets in that span. So he is just as much the wide receiver 1 as Jamar Chase. He just hasn't seen, Jamar Chase is insane right now. He's scoring insane amount of points over expectation. He's being extremely efficient. T. Higgins is on the other side of that pendulum. He is being extremely inefficient. He's not, converting his targets into yards, but that's not necessarily, a bad thing. Sometimes players just run cold with that kind of thing. The efficiency should come back for him. The offense is buzzing. T. Higgins is a guy that gets targets down the field. His ADOT is usually pretty high, and he's seeing targets right now of 8.6 targets per game. He's seeing volume of 8.6 targets per game, which would have been a top 12 rate last year. T. Higgins in a good offense. So the volume is there. We know the talent is there, and I will make that bet 10 out of 10 times. 10 out of 10 times. You give me a talented wide receiver who's getting the volume, I'm betting on that all day long. Now, I don't even want to get into the argument of, is T. Higgins the wide receiver 1? Is Jamar Chase the wide receiver 1? I can't stress this enough, guys. It does not matter. The biggest thing that annoys me all season is people like, oh, but is he like the wide receiver 1 on his offense? Guys, it doesn't matter when we're playing fantasy, right? So I'd rather have a guy that is top 12 in volume on his team. Like you could make the case that he is the wide receiver 1 in volume on Cincinnati. But what I'm here to say is that it doesn't really matter. Give me the guy. So let's say Devonta Smith, right? Let's say he has like a 22% target share on the Eagles, and T. Higgins, let's say he's behind Jamar Chase. Or let's say Jamar Chase, let's say he's the wide receiver 2 on the Bengals, and he's seeing, 23, 24% on the Bengals. Just because he's second in the totem pole, he's still seeing more volume than a guy like Devonta Smith, and he's producing more than a guy like Devonta Smith. When we go into our fantasy drafts, We don't just draft off the board of the wide receiver 1 on 32 teams. No, you start mixing it up. Volume matters. We you had like when Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley coexisted. You're not going to take the wide receiver 1 on the Lions over a guy like Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones. It's just not how it works. So we kind of have to get out of that idea of, who is the wide receiver 1 on this team and everybody else doesn't matter. We're in an age where there's so much passing of the football that there's numerous wide receivers that can be relevant on the same team. And we just kind of have to ask ourselves, are they getting the volume and are they good? Not are they first on the totem pole on their offense? Now that's, one of maybe many rants for today. Maybe that's kind of what you guys sign up for when you watch these videos. I don't know. If that, me being off topic there, was annoying, I guess let me know down below in the comments. But also, I do care what you guys think. But at the same time, I'm out here speaking my mind. Now, I took a little look-see at the CBS trade value chart. I always like to do this before I hop on and record these videos. And I kind of just jot down a couple players that I would, move according to them. Now, of course, I say this disclaimer every single time I record one of these videos. This is not my rest of season rankings. These are not my trade value charts. Your league could be completely different, but this was put together by some CBS expert out there who was hired full-time, makes more money than I do. So they have some kind of legitimacy, I guess. According to that chart, guys you could trade straight up for T. Higgins that I would do in an instant. If you have running back depth, I would trade Miles Sanders for T. Higgins straight up. I would trade Khalil Herbert for T. Higgins straight up. I would trade Michael Carter for T. Higgins straight up. Those are all guys who have the same exact point value in a PPR league as T. Higgins. So the market seems like they're really souring on him. Like I said, he has more targets than Jamar Chase during the span, and he is a really good wide receiver. So that's really all I need to see to still invest in him. I still think that he is at worst, a top 30 wide receiver rest of season. Which then brings us to Brandin Cooks, who's just been an absolute volume magnet. Quick water break. But he's 4th in the NFL in target share, which matters, right? 4th in the NFL in target share is huge, but he's also been the wide receiver 40 since week 4. So a lot of people are souring on Brandin Cooks. He's not, he was really good in the beginning of the season, but now he's not been that great. And most of it is because Davis Mills has been his quarterback. Davis Mills is a guy who probably shouldn't even be starting NFL games, to be honest. It's kind of wild that they wouldn't pick up a Cam Newton or, even how the Jets did trade for Joe Flacco. Now I guess they're a tanking team and you kind of want to see what you have in Davis Mills. Make sure that you don't have a Dak Prescott waiting in the wings, but you probably know that from practice. Now, regardless, he gets Tyrod Taylor back. Now, that might inherently move his price up, but there's a chance out there that whoever's in your league that has Brandin Cooks, they're not as up to date on what Tyrod Taylor brings to the table for Brandin Cooks and how soon he's going to be back. Apparently, he's going to be back as soon as this week and at the latest next week, so week 8 or 9, and that's going to have a huge impact on Brandin Cooks. This is his splits from 2021. The first 2 weeks, he had Tyrod Taylor. He averaged 20.5 points per game in those weeks. The following 5 with Davis Mills, he's averaged 12 points per game. So that's an 8-point difference. Now we're dealing with a teeny tiny sample size here, but at the end of the day, we can point at this chart and say, Davis Mills bad, Tyrod Taylor good. When Tyrod Taylor comes back, I instantly am going to have Brandin Cooks as, a top 20 wide receiver rest of season. He's going to get the volume. He's been getting the volume with Davis Mills. It just hasn't been super efficient. So I like him as a buy. Now, again, the CBS trade value chart says you can do something like Marvin Jones and Michael Carter or Melvin Gordon for him. That's a pretty junky offer, but if there's someone out there that is in dire need of a running back, if you can flip a Michael Carter, a Melvin Gordon, a Khalil Herbert, a Miles Sanders, and either package that up for Brandin Cooks or go out there and trade one of those straight up for T. Higgins, I would do that every time. Now, another wide receiver. We have all of our buys for today are wide receivers. The next one is Calvin Ridley. And this one's been tough. He is the wide receiver 28 in points per game to this point. And I'd imagine owners are pretty fed up at this point. They're seeing Pitts go off, have 2 straight 100-yard games. And Ridley, when he comes back, maybe it's a squeaky wheel treatment after, taking a week off and getting a bye. All he puts up is 4 catches for 26 yards and a touchdown. If you have Ridley, you are getting it probably fed up at this point. You're probably 2-5. You're probably struggling if you drafted him in the mid-second round. But the thing with Ridley is you kind of just have to believe in the talent at this point. And I know that I keep saying that. We have to remember how random the NFL is and how much variance there is, but we know that Ridley is talented. He produced alongside Julio. He produced once Julio left last year with Matt Ryan. I don't think that he's all of a sudden just not good. And he's been getting a lot of volume. He has 10 or more targets in every single game after week 1. The boom is on its way. If Kyle Pitts is out here putting up 100-yard performances, there's no reason Calvin Ridley can't as well. He's getting the targets. He's getting downfield targets. He's getting all the volume that makes a wide receiver 1. On top of that, the little cherry on top is he has the easiest schedule among wide receivers the rest of the way, according to PFF. Now, I believe after this week against the Panthers are a decently tough team against opposing wide receivers. I want to say he has matchups against the Cowboys and the Saints, who give up like the top 8 most points to opposing wide receivers. So his schedule really lightens up here. Calvin Ridley could be like a league winner down the stretch. He's really good. He's getting the targets. It just has to connect at some point. I think it will. And they're souring on him to the point where he's not even a top 8 wide receiver anymore on the trade value chart. And they're saying that you can do Emmanuel Sanders plus a David Montgomery or CEH and go get a Calvin Ridley. Maybe that's not likely, but apparently that's what they're saying you can do over there on CBS. If you can make something like that happen, I do that all day long. Now, we're going to talk about a little bonus buy here. Nice little bonus buy. I didn't jot down any notes, but a name that I wanted to put down is Darren Waller. He's been pretty disappointing since week 1. Week 1, he came out and looked amazing, man. He had a 30% plus target share. He looked really good. They were feeding him the football. Ever since then, it hasn't looked as good. But I will say for a tight end, he's still seeing fine volume, above a 20% target share. Derek Carr is going to look to feed him. Now, we're coming off a week where Foster Moore went out there and performed, and now we have a bye week. So if there's a Darren Waller owner out there that's 1-6 or 2-5 and they can't afford that bye, if you can go out there and take a Dallas Goedert, a Noah Fant, even go a little bit lower like a Dalton Schultz, Ricky Seals-Jones, and pair that up with somebody else to go up and get the luxury of a Darren Waller on the cheap, I'd be looking to do that all day. If I could do Dallas Goedert and Emmanuel Sanders and go get a Darren Waller, I don't know if that would work, but I still have faith in Darren Waller. I think that he's still going to be, my tight end 2 or 3 rest of season. I still do have faith in him. I think that this little pocket of him missing 2 games in a row is a good opportunity to go grab Darren Waller. Now, that brings us to our sells. And I didn't even mention in the beginning of the video, but we do top 5 trade targets. That's a bonus. We're going to do 3 buys, 2 sells, 5 trade targets. And our sell is Chicago running backs. So a picture of David Montgomery here, but I wanted to throw some running backs into this list because it's hard to trade. It's hard to even sell or buy running backs right now because running backs are so scarce that there's kind of a tax on them, right? And I'm not saying that you should be looking to sell immediately, but if you are strong at running back, then you can go out there and you can afford to trade away a David Montgomery or a Khalil Herbert. You should do that. Now, if you're struggling at running back, like 95% of the population is, it is completely fine to hold on to either of these options. I just wanted to throw this out there as a potential sell. And I wanted to highlight Khalil Herbert first. He looked great. He dominated the backfield. He ran for 100 yards against the Buccaneers. You don't just mess around and run for 100 yards against the Buccaneers on 18 carries. Khalil Herbert is legit good at football. So he's a weekly RB2. But now David Montgomery looks like he's going to be back in week 9. So Khalil Herbert is essentially an RB2 for 1 week and then maybe a flex play moving forward. It's a bad offense. So if you can sell Khalil Herbert to somebody that needs a spot start at running back, I would do that all day long. On the flip side, with David Montgomery, he thrived off of his usage, right? So he was getting all the passing down work, all the goal line work. He had this bell cow type role. Like I said, Khalil Herbert is legitimately good at football. I think Khalil Herbert comes in here and gives him some problems in terms of the pass catching work. Maybe he mixes in for some change of pace work. I don't think it's going to be as clear of a bell cow type role for David Montgomery. I think it will become a little bit of a committee. So if you can sell to somebody that needs, spot starts, they have buys, they have injuries. If you can sell, David Montgomery, on the positive news that he's going to be back soon, I don't mind selling if I'm deep at running back. Like I said, if you have, 3 running backs that you can start and you have David Montgomery sitting there on your IR spot or you have Khalil Herbert sitting there on your bench, selling either of them I think is a smart move right now. Which then brings us to our last sell candidate of the day. We have David Montgomery, but we have the Dolphins pass catchers. So this is mainly Jaylen, Waddle, and Mike Gesicki. And they've been really good this season. Waddle is the wide receiver 20 on the season. Gesicki is the tight end 3 in PPR scoring. The only problem is a lot of their success has been recently, And it's because Devontae Parker and Will Fuller have been injured this entire time. So they have been kind of the only pass catching options on that team. Now, I'm a big fan of, targets are earned, all that good stuff, but them coming back affects their route participation. It also affects especially a Mike Gesicki who plays all of these snaps out wide. And as that, big, slot, big X type receiver role, Devontae Parker takes away a lot of those looks from Mike Gesicki. So I think that it's worth noting that there could be some drawbacks there. So if you can, you can sell high on a Mike Gesicki who's like a top 3 tight end rest of season right now, or top 3 tight end on the season. If you can sell high on him, or Jaylen Waddle, if you can sell him for, wide receiver 2 prices, I do that all day. Now, again, I can't stress enough, these are small samples, really small samples. We're dealing with a 7-game sample, 4 games and 3 games. But with Devontae Parker in the lineup, Devontae Parker is scheduled to be back this week. If not this week, then next week. It's going to be coming very soon. I have in the split, so on the right side in the split, that is going to be games with Devontae Parker, and the other side is games without Devontae Parker. We look at Mike Gesicki first. Mike Gesicki averages 1 less target with Devontae Parker and about 6 less points per game with Devontae Parker in the lineup. Then you have Jaylen Waddle, who with Devontae Parker in the lineup averages 2 less targets and 4 less points per game. So it's a considerable downgrade. Now, obviously, there's going to be some factors with Tua not playing in those full games, and then you're also going to have, small sample. So there's a lot of noise in that data, but it is worth noting that when Devontae Parker is in the lineup, it affects Gesicki and Jaylen Waddle negatively. I think Will Fuller will be the same. So I think it's just something to be mindful of, and if you can sell either high, I would, like a Mike Gesicki. If you can sell Mike Gesicki and go down to, if you can go down to I don't know, this might sound wild, but if you can do like Dallas Goedert and T. Higgins for Mike Gesicki, I would. If you could do, for Waddle, like we were saying earlier, if you can do Waddle and pair that with, Waddle, I'm trying to think like Waddle and, if you could do like Waddle and David Montgomery and go grab a Calvin Ridley, like we were talking about earlier, go grab like a DJ Moore, I would do that all day long. Now, I don't know if either of those trades would actually happen in your league, but I'm just spitballing here live on the mic. Now, that's going to do it for us today, fellas. I will see you guys tomorrow for, I still don't know yet. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys want to see. I don't know if I'm going to do a running back start sit video like I do, where I highlight my 5 favorite starts, my 5 favorite sits, or if I'm going to go through the tier list again with the rankings and go through, my top 24 wide receivers or my top 24 running backs. I'm still kind of back and forth about how I want to do that, because I like getting into the nitty gritty and like giving you guys stats. I think that that's really what drives this channel, is when I, dive a little bit deeper than just the service level stuff and just kind of rattle off my top 24. But I'm going to figure that out tomorrow morning. I'm going to go upstairs, eat dinner, hang out with Winnie, my dog. Now, I love you guys. I think we're at like 6.75K. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, man. If we could hit 7K, 7.5K by like Christmas, that'd be really, really cool. Now, with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.